Well, this is a tape recording with Estelle Winkler, Estelle Winkler, and Hurley and Roberta Haygood in December of 1977, and we're talking about the Mahan, Delaney, Winkler families on this particular occasion. We're interested in some of the events of the family and the things which the family has done. They've made such a large contribution to the city of Hannibal that we want a record of it, and perhaps if there might be any information that had not been included in the book which we wrote, we'd like to have that just for our record. And so that's what this interview is all about. Ms. Winkler, I'm going to call you Estelle. All right. That's right. By the way, we're going to have a family class reunion. One of these. Well, it'd be the 50th of 1980. Maybe we ought to make it the 25th. Can we sieve and make it the 25th?
That's my 50th this year. I just lost track. I bet it was. We had one, I think we had one.
Long Sunday. I couldn't attend that.
I remember when we done the 6th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, that time's rolling around before too much longer. Estelle, tell us a little bit about you and your family, particularly your family. Tell us about your children, your husband.
My immediate?
Yes.
We had the 4 children, 3 boys, and then finally 1 girl. And they all spread to the 4 corners of the country. My family with their citizens. And we lived in Massachusetts. Number 2 boy, Delaney, was a broadcaster in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, the 3 boy, is an extended conference. And he was a commercial artist. He finally found his way. And my darling,
And the daughter's name?
Laura.
Laura.
Yes, she was alone, yes, she had. But her great aunt, Mrs. Winkler's sister, is just about a quarter of a mile from the city. She does have some family things out. And then, of course, I have 6 grandchildren. I see my last one on home.
Wow.
5 girls and 1 boy. The lady's just a boy.
Well, we're all in favor of grandparents. We have 2, so we're
Oh, good.
enthusiastic
Well, I was
about
going to ask you
grandparents.
about yours, too.
Well, we only had 1 son, and he's married, and he's with the Park Service, lives in Denver, and he has 2 daughters. One is married, and the other one is in college, and just wrote it this week. She's engaged.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're going to have 2 married granddaughters shortly.
Oh, dear. Well, my oldest is only 13, so I have to wait a while. You never know these days.
That's right. That's right.
And the youngest one is 0, so.
I just felt we ran into one thing about Chris, that he was the Tom Sawyer for 1 year.
It's still over there, Disney. They were the first one. He and this little girl, went out there and dedicated Mark Twain's island.
At Anaheim.
At Anaheim.
Disneyland.
First Disneyland. That was, that was 1966.
Well,
And, yeah. And that was the first year they started selecting the Tom Sawyer, and that was that for the year, to represent the year. But he was the first one. And it really was a good deal, because they were entertained royally by Walt Disney, and John took out a little container of Mississippi mud, to put rubbish in, and he went down into the river and got some Mississippi mud, somebody said, well, never know the difference you could get out of your backyard. He said, this has got to be Mississippi mud. It was from the river. And of course, John had lived from that river all his life, he started across it many times. He was a marvelous friend. And just grew up on it and in it, and it had to be the real thing. Chris was. Well, I was talking about my husband, John. But then as Chris grew older, he did the same thing. He swam a lot in the river. He was oh, yeah. Yeah, well, now he roamed southern, the woods down there. They used to go to the cave all the time. So they lived in South Hannibal, almost on the verge of the city limits, so he drove there.
I always say Hurley was the top Sawyer too, because he rode stuff all the hills.
I think a lot of those that grew up here were, because this is a place that's conducive to that.
That's why it looks so beautiful.
Yeah. It's a marvelous place to raise a family. It's good for children, or at least it was for my children growing up.
Well, it
I'm
still
not
is.
sure.
Still is comparative.
I guess so.
Comparative.
Yeah, of course, I'm about 10 years removed from that now. So.
Well, I guess Chris had a lot of adventures out of being the first Tom Sawyer, I think.
Oh, yes. Well,
Just that trip
well, that was
Disneyland.
that was a good start for us. And then, of course, they were just sort of starting out, deciding what they should represent, what they should do. And, of course, I think now they really do a lot more than that, because it was just the first year and they were getting started. But Chris, really, I couldn't believe it. But we had little 4-story high on this side of the hill, and his room was right above there. And one night, we thought he was in bed. He went to sleep and he thought, they were supposed to be in bed. And I had to check. There was just as smooth as anything. He'd never been in it. I knew he had to come downstairs. I thought, how in the world did he get out of this room? He had gone down the drain pipe, guys. I am sure. I didn't think it would hold him.
Oh, that's pretty...
Now that's a long job.
If it's out in the hills.
I think he took this too literally. And he met a friend of his, and they tooted downtown as the wonder they were picked up for late hours. It was after midnight. How old was he? He must have been around 14 then. It was after his
Well, he must have been a typical mischievous kid.
Well, he was. But he was nature boy. He loved being out. He loved being out in the woods. And he'd get out a lot of times and just go back here in the woods and roam around. And he wanted to see the sunrise, he said. So he'd be out maybe at 4 or 5 in the morning. He'd go out and he'd, I think he
That's why he stood on.
Yes, he observed a lot too. And he brought, one night he brought home a fox, a wounded fox. Now this was after he was driving. Yeah, he must have been 18. He was marvelous with animals. He could do things with animals that other people would be scared to even touch. Well, a wounded fox, I wouldn't go near. It's a wonder he couldn't. Yeah. And, but he saw it. His light picked it up out on the highway, this puddle thing on the side of the road. And he stopped and picked it up, got it in the car, got it home, put it in a box, made a mess for it. And nobody could go near it. I was scared to death of it. So he could fix it and feed it. And the next morning, it raised the lid and got out. And we have a brush pile back here in the lid. And he went down in there and hid. place was a wild thing. And, but he was glad that it had recovered that much. Like, evidently, it was, I don't know if the leg was broken or what, but it was limping down. But he went down in the brush pile and fed it, you know, threw the food to it and everything until it got strong enough. In 3 days, he disappeared.
Well.
And he was always doing things like this, you know, and he could ride a horse like he was proud of a horse. I mean, it was just like a centaur. He was just, it was natural in him. He was just nature. I could figure.
Were the other boys a similar
Well, they're
nature?
all very different. But my oldest boy was really a bookworm. Johnny was a scientist. He just read, well, his room was, you could hardly get in it for the books. It was just pile high. Of course, he liked other things too. He liked sports. He liked basketball, and he was in high school, and he was the manager of the basketball team. And he loved music. He had a tremendous collection of records. Like he would have maybe 4 or 5 different orchestras playing the same symphony, or he'd have several different companies doing the same opera. And he said, but look at the business now. Now listen to this. Now then listen to this. You know, I just about that gifted. Music I love. But I don't know much about it. And but he knows every difference. He's pretty good music taste too, I guess.
He must have got that from his grandmother.
I think so. Because none of us got it. None of her children got it. But, you know, she was marvelous. She could play anything. And had perfect pitch. It's great to see her. But none of us, my sister, my brother, and I, we never fit together. But he was, he was just all the different. And then, of course, Delaney, the middle one, he was just the regular, Andy Hardy, I guess you call him. He went into all the sports. He was a football player, and he could have gotten a football scholarship. But he didn't. After he got into college, he didn't. I don't know, he lost interest in football. He went into wrestling and high school and tennis. He was one of the first, I think, to start the tennis teams out here. You know, Ed Porter was enthusiastic about that and really got a bunch together. And Delaney and Warren Wilson and
Was Gable here, or was this after World War?
Green.
This was after World War II.
Let's see, wait a minute. Oh, yes, because they were little bitty kids there. Oh, yes, this was in the 50s. Yeah, 58, 59. Yes, they had their first, as a school sport, it was the first year. He was on the team first year. And incidentally, Johnny started the first year of golf, too. When they first started him golf, he was on the first golf team. So they were just beginning to branch out from the usual basketball, football, volleyball, you know, and getting into some other sports. Ben Delaney was a reader, too. He's an all-around. He just, everything was just to his mind. He's the only one that got caught up in the Vietnam War. He was a Marine in Vietnam for 15 months. Published in my hair white because he was in the field. But he came back without a spell, physically and psychologically.
Wonderful.
And he went out just, you know, just joined the Marines. He was going to be drafted anyway, and he said, "Oh, I'll never be in the Marines." And during the year, in the course of the field work, he got up to sergeant. So he got up to sergeant. Oh, he did pretty well. But,
so when were you married? When did you and John? In 1930.
June 11th.
And John died a year ago.
Next month, 5th of January.
5th of January.
77. We
77.
married 40 and a half years.
A few years ago, 1958, I believe, John received a silver cup from the National Trust
Oh, yes, I'll talk to you
Historic
later.
Preservation.
Yes, yes. For his work during restoring the area of history.
Do you recall how long he was president of the Mark Twain Museum on board?
He was 31 years.
31 years. 31 years. What things did John do? See, that was the period we were gone.
Yeah,
So
right.
we're unfamiliar with what happened in that period of time. In the area down in the Mark Twain home area, were there any other things that he was interested in, buildings that he had an interest in
Well,
during
of
that
course,
time?
the city required. See, my mother gave the house of Pulaski to the city, and then of course he was instrumental in restoring that. And I'll tell you, Charlie Walker, he's wonderful. He worked with him, and of course John really wasn't professional in restoration, but he wanted it authentic, and so Charlie Walker worked with him on all of that. And they scoured the countryside, they went into all kinds of places, bars and everything else, finding things. People are so generous, and they think they have old things, and they think they will be valuable or useful. But they don't go back far enough. You see, they may go back to the 70s or the 60s. But that home was in the 40s, 1840. And so Charlie Walker could tell the period and know what was too late for the home, or what,
That is Charlie Walker.
His father had his father had a drugstore over on the south side.
Well, I
South
remember
Main Street,
walking.
yeah. But he had a very good, he built up a very good reputation. He was called in Chicago and Philadelphia for appraisals. I mean, he really had great knowledge of everything. So he was done. Well, he helped John an awful lot. And you see, when John started to get interested down there was the Becky Thatcher home just sitting there. And going to waste. Mrs. Hammer and Miss Hayes, the two sisters-in-laws, were going to restore the boarding house. They had a few rooms there. Now, before that, it was a different kind of boarding house. Every once in a while, they would get upset by some man who hadn't been here for a long time, coming back to Hannibal and remembering, banging on the door at 4 o'clock in the morning, Well, they had marvelous sense of humor, so they really got kicked out of things like that. But at first I think at first he leased the house, and they still lived upstairs. And he started this bookshop in one side of the house. And then it took on so, that he realized that he was going to need the whole house. But they worked for him. These old ladies, they were lovely, these little ladies. And then he realized he was going to need more room and more room, so that then he bought it. I don't know exactly what that was. But, and then they kept on working for him, but they moved out, of course he needed the whole house then. And his dream was to have a very nice atmosphere, sort of, like a library. He had a couch and a overstuffed chair, and a little bookshop, an open fireplace, and people were to come in and browse, and that was his idea. Well, the chair went and the couch went, he just needed the room. It just got too big, got beyond him. all the comforts and all the atmosphere most of it had to leave. So it just became a real good thing. Boy, the field was wide open. Even in Hannibal, there was no real bookstore. I mean, Osceola had a bookshop, but it was mostly a gift shop. They might have had 2 shelves of books, because those things, things like that. There's no real bookshop in Canada. And, you go to England or any place, and well, besides the Palmyra, we'll have 6 bookshops, but not here. So, anyway, there was quite a feel for it. And then, everything just sort of built up. One thing led to another. The postcard business, there was no postcards after about 1912. Funny little cards of Hannibal. In the 50s, he started using our kids for models and doing his own photography. And in connection with the Dexter Press, he made all these lovely postcards that we have now, and that became quite a business, too. And that was certainly a wide open field. I don't know why anyone hadn't thought of that field before. But I think you have to be on the scene. First, an awful lot of Hannibals never even been down on Hill Street, so they didn't start up before. But as far as the buildings were concerned, then of course they moved that law office from the where was it, on South Bird?
Yes, down in between
It's on now.
100 blocks.
Yes, well, the picture,
I believe.
My memory.
Well, it was a movie company.
Movie company that was making the picture of Tom Sawyer. Well, anyway, they bought the thing and gave it to the city. Well, it was so far removed and in such a bad section that they decided to move it up to the where it is now, press section. Of course, he was instrumental in that. Rebuilt just exactly the way it was. Oh, somewhere I've got pictures of all this. I've got pictures of all these in various stages of the building and redoing it and everything. But I had more time to bury out. But then the house of collapsed was restored. Walker was very instrumental in getting that. And then John got the idea of using mannequins to liven up these museum rooms. And so that took a long time, and they had to go back and listen to costumes and stuff and what you wanted. And these positions, especially in the law office where the fellow was lying on the couch and well, I mean, it was fine. Spent the night and then woke up and saw the fellow on the floor. And those magazines. And then John got the idea, somewhere along the line, I think it was the of fixing up the upstairs of the bookshop of the house he owned. Of course, Becky Baxter's home was the only house he owned. The rest was city. And having Becky and Paul and fixed up that as just a little museum of his own, his type. And it probably helped him on that.
Is that house still privately owned?
Oh, yes.
Do the Antons own that house?
No, it's not.
For sure. Absolutely.
It will be when the estate settled. It's in the estate now. But that was John. That was every bit of that was his baby. I hardly went down there. I mean, I didn't want to interfere in any way. That was all his.
Is the Pilaster house owned by the city?
Yes.
And the law office?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
And they were all given to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By your father and your father?
No, my mother. Just my mother, the house of Pilaster. They were all gone then. My father died in 1940. My grandfather died in 36.
I wonder about that. Your father died for 2 months.
3 years. 3 years.
Incidentally.
3 years and 3 months. And he had a heart attack at 55, and that's pretty young.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're looking at it from the other end at that time, it was a shock because it was.
Your grandfather lived to be very old.
He was 85. And he lived 30 years longer than my father. But they were both heart attacks, and they both went very suddenly.
Estelle, one thing that we found was that you were in a production in 1918, April the 12th, Tom Thumb Wedding.
I don't remember that.
Do you recall it at all?
No, I remember the kids. I think, now let's see, I think Dorothy Renman Weaver was bride. And I think Bill Bounds, Dr. Bounds' son, was the Dr. Seymour, was the groom, and I think, I'm not sure, I think I was the bridesmaid. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
We found an account of that, this picture.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't even have any, my mother may have. You see, she's got tons of junk in her attic that I've never gotten into, so she may have all that stuff, but that's a little before I started collecting
Well, we
clippings.
took a lot of notes on those phone drives. We had enough notes on those.
Oh, yes, well, now that's where you would find, these things. Well, that was pretty early. I was sort of stage struck, you know. I was in a lot of the high school productions of things, the class plays and things like that. And then I was in an American Legion deal, you know, when they used to give a musical every year down at the old Orpheum. So I was on the stage there once in a musical. That was long before I was married.
Estelle, the last visit of Mark Twain was substantially before you were born, but do you recall anything your parents ever talking about
I don't
Mark
think
Twain?
they ever met him. He was here just that one evening, you know, and went up to the Cruikshank Mansion. That was 1902, I believe. But I don't think, and I'm pretty sure that my grandfather never met him.
Well, now, I believe that it was your grandfather, could have been your father, that went to a reception dinner the night at Clayton's, one of the nights that he was here in 1902. There was quite an article about it.
Well, that would have been my grandfather if he was there, because, see, my father was, in 1902. He was only, he'd only been 18 years old. I doubt if they would have had kids there, you know.
No, it was kind of smoking.
Probably was, if it was anybody, it was my grandfather, but I just assumed that he had never met him, because but I don't know.
Well, it listed those who were in attendance.
Well, it would have been my grandfather.
I think he was
Did you find that in the Robards scrapbook?
Yes.
It was never in the papers, but the Robards
Well, that's probably why I never knew about it, I guess.
the Historical Society, and this party was written up in the diary.
Oh,
Robards.
well, that may have. Or it may have been, you sure it was Mayhem, it wasn't Delaney. No, because Delaney died in 95. That's right, he wouldn't have been there. No, it probably would have been there. I guess so.
We also found quite an article about the 1935 centennial Mark Twain celebration.
Oh, yeah.
And that let's see, Mark Twain's granddaughter was here.
Oh, yes, he was here. I was the hostess.
That's what we found.
Yeah.
Do you?
And, yes, I've got pictures of that. Yes, she came in on the Burlington, and we went down to meet her, and then we had a big luncheon at the Mark Twain Hotel. We had sort of several two birds with one stone for that visit. And now let's see. There were two of them. She was here twice. Because the Burlington Zephyr dedication, the granddaughter was here alone. And earlier in that year, when we inaugurated the centennial, she came with her mother. But her mother was here, and see this. I'll come there. So we'll get it on the tape. was Charles Dawes, who was vice president. And this was Kellogg, who was, the college food pack. And this was her, this one? St. Louis? This one? And, now, I'm not sure. This was the Mark Twain luncheon. And I think it was the last one my grandfather, what day was it? 36. Well, you see, he died, this was in November 30th, and he died December 60th.
Miss Martha,
2 years later.
that's bigger.
Yeah, yeah. And that's for the teenagers on the Then 2 years after that, he got a heart attack. But that was his last. And then he was on the board of trustees at the university. And I had a picture I took of the daughter. Did you see the one where I was telling you about it down at the home, where she was paying the cat on the back fence? Now, here's where she was there, the daughter, Nina. Now, this is Walter Russell. This is the sculptor. And here I am. I didn't see me.
In the background.
Yeah. Morris Anderson.
And an early Tom and Becky.
Yeah, now they were just for the occasion. They were not the same deal that they do now. See, they had Pop and Tom and Becky for the same time. But that was before they started the annual collection. And well, yeah, and she was 85 then.
What? Good lady.
She had her hair dyed. Let's see, because I have a thing here. Where it says she was 85.
When she died, we were living there near where she was. They have a Santa picture.
Oh, in California. Yeah.
And
Well, now wait a minute. Maybe she wasn't 85 at that time. But
maybe 90-something when she died.
Yes,
She was quite old. I just saw that this morning when I'm hanging out that with my baby. She said, I throw it away. Finally, I decided I'd give it to Ruth Anthony.
oh, yes. She's quite
Because it was a local story.
But I can't, I don't think I have too many things. Really, if I had an earlier book, and I do have somewhere, but I can't find it. Of course, this is the Historical Society. Oh, here it is. Here's the picture. I took it. Then they put it in the paper.
Yes.
Petting the cat.
No, I knew. If I saw that, I didn't
Well, it was just a private picture.
I
They just
divorced
printed
that
it
thought
as it was.
because it was in the 35 paper.
yeah.
But,
Now, this is Clara Clements Bilowitz.
That's the daughter, the only surviving daughter. And, of course, now look at the difference in the backyard. There was this high wooden fence and a shed here.
Oh, that's at the home, isn't it? Mark Twain's
backyard of
home.
the home.
And she's putting
You
a
would
cat
never
up on the
recognize
fence.
it from the way
Yeah,
it is now.
sure.
before the garden and before the beautification.
Before everything.
Oh, it's people are coming from all over the world.
Yes, at that time, they had a, what they call a house, a little thing right next door where the garden is now. And we had to buy that and tear it down and make it right. So it was part of town. But, yeah, now this is all my grandfather's, You've probably seen all of these, you see. This was
I copied one of Living Talks.
You have that headline.
yeah, you probably have all that. Well, you see, now his scrapbooks, he had piles of them, and my mother had them. He kept the office for quite a while down on over the bank there. Then when she gave it up, she brought all the books home, and they're probably up in her attic somewhere. I haven't even had time to get my own attic. I don't know if I'll ever get hers or not. So I really just, as I say, I just don't have much on hand.
Tell us a little bit about your mother. What was her maiden name?
Well, she was Reverend Marshall's daughter, Reverend Levi Marshall. He had the First Christian Church here in the at the turn of the century, and he was born in Akron, Ohio. Then they went to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then they came here. She was 2 years old. And her mother was an Eastern family from Missouri. And the father, her grandfather, was an architect. He built churches all over the world, and I guess that's where all the artistic ability comes from the family, because she was quite an artist as well as a draftsman, and he was a church architect. And he experimented with air conditioning way back in the 1800s. Yeah, George doesn't sing it. A-R-A-M-E-I. And he lived to be 92. In fact, my son was born. He died. He was his only great-grandson.
At the Delaney building at the First Christian Church there.
Well, now the Delaney building is from the other Delaney. That's from Will and Edith Schofield Delaney, and Will Delaney, and Vivian Delaney. You see, their father their mother was my grandmother's first cousin. So they were cousins of my father. There were the three of them, and my father was an only child. So then they eventually moved to St. Louis, which just left our branch.
Well, that had no connection then between the minister that was...
No.
Uh-huh.
No, except that, of course, they were
within
all
the
very
family.
influential in the church.
Yeah.
And of course, they were very close friends with the minister, and they always came over for Sunday dinner with his daughter. See, my grandmother died when my mother was only 15. So she was, women in the congregation sort of felt the colonel voters. And my grandmother came here, especially so. But of course my father just thought she was a little title on, but she was about 5 years younger at that time. There's a lot of difference in ages.
Yeah.
But when he graduated from Missouri University and went to Harvard Law School, he was just going to graduate. And so my grandmother said, now you've got to be nice to little Sarah Marshall. Because I'm going to speak daughter, and she's going out, she doesn't know anybody, and you be nice to her. Of course, they're right there by Boston, both Wellesley and Harvard were so close. And I'm not sure who relished that, but that's really how they knew each other here, but that's really how they got together. So she became quite a close to her.
Yeah.
And so the romance really started out there. And then they were married in 1911. And so a year after they got graduated.
She was quite musical. She had this theremin that...
yeah, the theremin. It was...
Theremin?
Theremin. Uh-huh. It was named for Professor Theremin, a Russian. He invented it. And it really was, he invented it to detect metals, people who were going into prison, for instance. It would pick up anything that got close to it and detect, like they have radar, X-rays now, in those days they didn't. And it would just go off like a siren. Then he found out that you could control these sounds that were being made in the ether waves. And so he started using it as a musical instrument. And it's a very eerie thing, because you play it entirely in the air, you don't touch anything. You just have to know, you have to have an ear. And she had a perfect ear, so she could play it. And I heard him give a recital my first year at Smith, and I was just fascinated by it. And I thought, well, my mother could play that, because I'm supposed to play anything. It was just good. And so when Daddy said, what in the world, when I'm going to get some mother for Christmas, I heard the perfect thing. Well, you don't just go down to your corner music store and buy a theremin, So he had a long search through the Aeolian Company in St. Louis. They located one in Detroit. Man who had bought it and just couldn't control it, couldn't do anything with it, and he was willing to unload it. So it was second hand.
What's the real estate in St. Louis?
Aeolian.
E-O-L-I-A-N.
AEO, I think. And it's, of course, they had the contacts, they knew where to look. But so he did get it for her. And there was no way, nobody could teach her how, because nobody knew anything about it. So she just experimented with it, and she would play records to give an orchestration for the background, because it's like a violin and a cello, you know, it needs a little help in the background. And she just learned how.
That's a marvelous thing.
I can remember that the only instrument that didn't resemble a pipe that resembled a violin,
Yes.
a good violin.
Mm-hmm. And in the deeper notes, it can sound like a cello, but it's an eerie thing. And you know, there were only, I think there were only 14 in the world. There were 9 in the United States. I don't know how many are left now. Very few. But one of Helen Hayes' productions in New York, I can't think. That was used as background music, as news music. This man lived in Connecticut, and he went into New York every night just to play this for that production. So her mother was in New York at one time. She went to see him. She was getting a party started. And with everything, it was the other way around. You know, because she was very proficient in it, and he was more of a musician, less of a just play by ear.
Do you still, is it still in the family?
Yeah, it's I doubt if it takes a lot to tune it. And it will go out of, well, it's not exactly pruning, but you have to, for instance, you might set it up like she used to do for a concert, and she got arranged fairly well, like she gets little tree or whatever it was she wanted to build some, maybe 12 inches from the rod, which is what she gauged from. So by the time the room filled up, and maybe several hundred people got in there with their body heat, the temperature went up, and the thing went clear off. It might have been drawn back sort of, you know, so she had to readjust it all over again, bring it up close to the rod. Very sensitive and very
Yes, indeed. Well, it takes quite a person to be able to play an instrument.
Well,
like that.
it takes a complete ear.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like if she sits down to a piano and she can play anything somebody whistles. You know, she doesn't have to worry about, well, is it B or C? In fact, she doesn't need it. She just knows who to make them.
When I'm talking to Mrs. Seibel, when we were writing the book, she told me that Helen Grace and your mother were the only two people she knew up in Christmas.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I know Mother had perfect pitch. I didn't know that Helen Grace had to try to be different. But it's unusual, even in good musicians.
Very
A
unusual.
complete gift.
Yeah.
You just born with it. Have it or you don't.
Your father, Delaney Mahan, we found a notation that he had the first Packard car in Hannibal.
Now, I don't know. Some people might dispute that, because the Fire Fantasies had a Packard car. And the Myers, what was his name? Anyway, he had a Packard car. Now, Mother was going with both Daddy and Mr. Myers. They both had Packard cars.
Oh, choice.
But, yes, it was one of the first, anyway. And he drove it out to school. He drove it to Boston and had it carried out there in Austria. And that's what he would drive back and forth to Wellesley.
Well, this notation was in November of 1915, so that was an early car. We read someplace,
I think it was a 1909 car.
well, we read someplace about, I thought it was one of the Delaney's that drove a car from up near Minnesota, up north, to St. Louis, coming through Hannibal, and frightened a horse out here at Oakwood.
That could be.
But did any of the, well, it would have been in
6 or 7.
long in that period of time. But did some of the Delaney's or the Mayhans live up there at
Oh, yes, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
Yes, Delaney, yes, one of the Delaney's had that lumber company in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. You see, they were all in lumber. That's what really started them
This
out.
was in 1904. They were on the way to the fair.
That could have
They
been.
drove from there
Yes.
to the World's Fair, St. Louis
Well, that would have been an early car.
in 1904.
How many cars?
Well, now that would be before this car. But now that Delaney, oh, let's see, now what was his name? He was another George thing. He was a cousin of, a first cousin of Mary Schofield, Edith Schofield Delaney and Will Delaney and Vivian, those three. Then they had, across Center Street, that the old apartment house now is an old Delaney house.
Has porch on it now.
Yes, that's right. Well, that was a George Delaney
That was
house.
George Delaney.
And he was first cousin to these other Delaney. And his, now wait a minute. It was his brother, I believe, that was in Wisconsin. His children, he had 2 children, George Jr. and Kristen Delaney. Kristen went to Dallas and married Lingo down there, Matt Lingo. And their children are still in Dallas. But the name is gone. There is a Delaney Lingo, and that's all, the first name. And then the daughter married a Shulkoff down there. Very prominent in Dallas. And now it's the Shulkoff, the ones that you know that go to Minnesota in summer, things like people in the summer. And that's our only contact with them. But now the one you're talking about in Wisconsin was the one who married Dan Price's aunt.
Oh.
Aunt Mame. We called her Aunt Mame. She married Delaney. And he died first, and then she left all that Delaney money to the Overstreet. So Mrs. Overstreet was her niece. And that's how Francis and the Overstreet out here on Harrison Hill. And Emily,
Jimmy.
Jimmy. You know, that hard name to remember, Jimmy. Jim Overstreet and Emily, you see, were the son and daughter of the elder Mrs. Overstreet, who was the niece of Aunt Mame Delaney. So all of that money went to that side. And that's why they are real fixed now. And then, but that was way off. Cousins.
Yeah. Was your father an attorney?
Yeah. My grandfather and my father and my brother.
Where did your father go to school?
Harvard Law.
At Harvard.
Well, now he
And
graduated.
now that's where he met your mother there.
Well, he didn't meet her there because
He
he knew her
knew her
here.
before, but that's where they...
She grew up knowing them, but that's where the romance began. And well, he had graduated from Missouri University first, and then went to Harvard Law. Because the main thing, if you're going into a profession, you know, in Missouri, my grandfather thought you should know the people in Missouri, you know, and then you want to go on. So he went to the university, and then he went to Harvard Law. Now, my grandfather was a lawyer, too, and he's the one I was telling you about. They went to Washington University before it was Washington and Lee in Virginia. It was called Washington University then because that was the first year that, just the second year, that Lee was president there after the Civil War. You know, they gave him that position as president of Washington University.
You told us that his graduation certificate was signed by Lee?
Yeah, I don't know where that is, but Lee was the president at that time. Now, he has a picture autographed by Lee of Lee at some university. And that's something. But then he came back and read law here in Harrison's Law, Judge Harrison's Law Office, that's right. And he read law there. Of course, in those days, you see, that was way back in the late 1870s, I guess. And there were specialized law schools at that time. And you usually just read law like an apprentice would learn anything from someone already established. And then, of course, my brother did the same thing as my father. He went to McGill University and then went to Harvard Law. But he never practiced here. He passed the bar exams in Missouri, but he never practiced here. He went back to New York. He was supposed to up here in Washington State. Now he's in New York, and he's been in New York for 4 years. Daniel Delaney. So they were all three attorneys.
Your grandmother, Mrs. George A. Mahan, her name was Ida
Mary Delaney.
Ida Mary Delaney.
That's where I get Ida Estelle, and my sister gets Mary Marshall.
Oh yeah.
Estelle is my mother's middle name, and Marshall was her last name. So we were married to the two
names for the
grandmother.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Your grandmother gave the home over here.
Yes, she and my grandfather together.
Well, now, I don't recall the exact details. We have it someplace, but they gave it, but in honor of someone, another relative.
I'll tell you, there was, I'm very hazy on that, and I was on the board there, too, but it's been so long ago. They were in conjunction with somebody else. They built the building. And I think the Pettibones furnished it or something. I mean, there was the other donor in there. So I was the Pettibones, I believe. Now, whether they built it in honor of her mother,
But one of the Delaney, they gave it in memory.
Yeah, but it was her mother. Because her mother died in 1911, right after my mother's father got married. But she was at their wedding in Houston. And, you know, of course I told you. I think I told you this. The wives of Dan Delaney. You know, my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather, had 4 wives. And he lived out in Paris. Well, his first 3 wives all died in childbirth, which was the bugaboo of the middle 1800s. And they were very young. And he has a gravestone out there with 3 arches, 1 stone, the wives of Dan Delaney. And then each plaque on each arch, which is the 3 parts of the 1 stone, the names of each one.
What's the temperature?
No, it's over in Paris, Missouri. Yes, it's still there, and somebody wrote that up once as an oddity of the Midwest, because they'd never seen a gravestone like that. And then he has the names of each wife, her birth date, her marriage date, and her death date, which is unusual.
That was always sad. The family looked at it.
Yes, because now one girl was only married for 9 months. She died in 9 months. One was married 18 months, and I think one was, I don't think any of them was 2 years. One was 20 months. And I think, you know, he did that just to
Yeah.
show how terrible it could be in that time.
How sad it was for him.
Oh, I don't know how he survived. You know, so many things happened though in the last century. They were tough people, and both of them were survivors. You see, my great-grandmother had survived 3 marriages. He survived 3 wives, and she survived 2 husbands. He was her 3rd husband. She was his 4th wife. They were the toughest. They were the survivors. And but she said she'd be darned if she was going to be under that darn stone with the wives of Dan Delaney. So they moved. So she came to Hannibal, and she has her own stove, and he's right beside her.
Is that not all of it?
Yeah, that's up there, the Delaney stone with the angel pointing up, you know.
Oh,
with
yeah.
the-
Oh, yeah.
Quite a high,
Yeah.
big angel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Delaney's around there. But they are by themselves there.
You were on the home board, you said.
No, that was before my time. My grandmother knew. I have a picture of my grandmother having tea with her. But I don't know where that is either. But no, I never did. She was alive, but she wasn't up there when I was on board.
Estelle, when I was a Boy Scout, we went up there from 1925, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. We'd go up and have a party for the children. And I'm not certain, but I think I can remember her.
Well, I bet you can, because she was there. Oh, yes, she was there.
And,
See, I didn't go on the board until I was out of college. I guess it was 35 or 36, somewhere along there. She was but for me, it was later. No, I was only...
Well,
I was only on about 10 years.
well,
Oh, yes.
but you were on the board when it dissolved, were you?
Yes.
It was strange how the need for
Well, you see,
orphanages
when all
came.
this age-dependent children came in, you see, suddenly people wanted their children to get that money. And there weren't any true orphans over there. When the last year when I was on the board, there was no true orphan. There was some divorced and broken homes. And so they kept taking them out. Then they could get this age-dependent children who paid this money. And they did it for that. The kids are still living on side potatoes and never knows where the money went. But that's what the state was doing with its, you know, help. A lot of people needed the help. But a lot of people just took their kids out to get it, you know. And I think we got down to C. And they had an uncle who was over in Jeff City in the legislature. You know his family. Not family. Yeah, again, there's my memory. But they could easily find a place for those 3. They could keep the place open for 2 kids. So they were placed with their family, an uncle or somebody. And the thing just dissolved. Well, there was something in the deed, I think, that if the time ever came, you know, when the kids were used, that it would revert to the family.
That happened when it was all service and care.
Yeah. There has to be some disposition for it. And then, of course, what did we do? We just sold it, and then the Catholic school wanted it. Luckily, because there's not too much market for a thing like that. And they've done a very, very nice job with it. I think so too. I really do.
Your grandmother also left this money for the Mahan Awards in the public school, which has been a very interesting and good thing for the community.
Well, and then we had to add to that. My mother and my brother and sister and I, when things, well, what was in place, the amount she left is, about 15, I can't remember, years ago, in order to keep up the same amount to get from the capital, because we don't go into capital usually. her great aunt, which is going to be 50, is just about a quarter of a mile from the 50. She goes to family and stuff. And then, of course, I have 6 grandchildren. I see my last one on home.
Oh.
5 girls and 1 boy. The
Well.
lady's got the boy.
Well, we're all in favor of grandparents. We have 2, so we're
Oh, good.
enthusiastic
Well, I was
about
going to ask you
grandparents.
about yours, too.
We only had 1 son, and he's married, and he's with the Park Service, lives in Denver, and he has 2 daughters. One is married, and the other one is in college, and just wrote it this week. She's engaged.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're going to have 2 married granddaughters shortly.
Oh, dear. Well, my oldest is only 13, so I have to still wait a while. You never know these days.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And the youngest one is 0, so.
I was told we ran into one thing about Chris, that he was the Tom Sawyer for 1 year.
Picture over there was Disney. They were the first ones. He and this girl, went out there and dedicated Mark Twain's island. Tom Sawyer Island.
At Anaheim.
At Anaheim.
Disneyland.
First Disneyland. That was so sweet. That was 1966.
Yeah.
And yes. And that was the first year they started collecting the Tom Sawyer and for the year, to, to represent Hannibal for the year. So he was the first one. And it really was a big deal because they were entertained royally by Walt Disney. And John took out a little container of Mississippi mud, to put rubbish in for it. And he went down in the river and got some Mississippi mud. Somebody said, well, never know the difference. You can get out of your backyard. He said, this has got to be Mississippi mud. It was from the river. And of course, John had lived and from that river all his life. He stayed across it many times. He was the smallest son. And just grew up on it and in it, and it had to be a real thing. Chris was. Well, I was talking about my husband, John. But then as Chris grew older, he did the same thing. He swam a lot in the river. He was
your husband too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, now he roamed southern the woods down there. They used to go to the cave all the time. So they lived in South Hannibal, almost on the verge of the city limits, so they drove there.
I always say Hurley was the top seller too, because he wrote all of those.
I think a lot of the boys that grew up here were, because this is a place that's conducive to that.
That's why it looks so beautiful.
It's a marvelous place to raise a family. It's good for children, or at least it was for my children growing up.
Well, it
I'm
still
not
is.
sure.
Still is comparative.
I guess so.
Comparative.
Yeah, of course, I'm about 10 years removed from that now. So.
Well, I guess Chris had a lot of adventures out being the first Tom Sawyer, I think.
Oh, yes. Well,
Just that trip to
well, that was
Disneyland.
a good start for us. And then, of course, they were just sort of starting out, deciding what they should represent, what they should do. And, of course, I think now they really do a lot more than that, because it was just the first year and they were getting started. But Chris, really, I couldn't believe it. But we had little 4-story high on this side of the hill, and his room was right above there. And one night, we thought he was in bed. Yeah, he went to night. He was up, and they were supposed to be in bed. And I ran to check. Bed was just as smooth as anything. Had never been in it. I knew he had to come downstairs. I was like, how in the world did he get out of this room? He had gone down the drain pipe, guys. I am sure. I didn't take it with home.
Oh, they're pretty.
Now that's a long job.
If it hadn't held, it
I
would
think
have
he took this too literally. This thing. And he met a friend of his, and they toured downtown at the one that they were picked up for late hours. It was after midnight. Oh, how old was he? He must have been around 14 then. It was after his
Well, he must have been a typical mischievous kid.
Well, he was. But he was nature boy. He loved being out. He loved being out in the woods. Now, he'd get out a lot of times and just go back here in these woods and roam around. And he wanted to see the sunrise, he said. So he'd be out maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. And go out and I think he could.
That's why he's good on it.
Yes, he observed a lot too, and he brought one night he brought home a fox, a wounded fox. Now this is after he was driving. Boy, he was marvelous with animals. He could do things with animals that other people would be scared to even touch. Well, a wounded fox, I wouldn't go near it. You know, it's a wonder he didn't get it. And, but he saw it. His light picked it up out on the highway, this little thing on the side of the border. And he stopped and picked it up, got it in the car, got it home, put it in a box, made a mess for it. And nobody could go near it. I was scared to death of it. But he could fix it, he freed it. And the next morning, it raised the lid and got out. And we have a brush pile back here in the woods. And he went down in there and hid. But it was a wild thing. And, but he was glad that it had recovered that much. Evidently, it was, I don't know if the leg was broken or what, but it was limping down. But he went down in the brush pile and fed it, you know, threw the food to it and everything until it got strong enough. In a few days, he disappeared.
Well.
And he was always doing things like this, you know. And he could ride a horse like he was part of a horse. I mean, it was just like a stunt car. He was just, it was natural in him. He was just nature boy. I could say.
Were the other boys a similar
Well, they're
nature?
all very different. My oldest boy was really a bookworm. Johnny, the scientist. He just read, well, his room was, you could hardly get in it for the books. It was just piled high. Of course, he liked other things too. He liked sports. He liked basketball, and he was in high school, and he was the manager of the basketball team. And he was, he loved music. He had a tremendous collection of records. Like he would have maybe 4 or 5 different orchestras playing the same symphony, or always had several different companies doing the same opera. And he said, but look at the difference, Mom. Now listen to this. Now then listen to this. You know, I just about that gifted. Music I love. But I don't know much about it. And but he knows every difference. He's a good music critic too, I guess.
He must have got that from his grandmother.
I think so. Because none of us got it. None of her children got it. But, you know, she was marvelous. She could play anything. And had perfect pitch. It's great to see her. But none of us, my sister, my brother, and I, we never fit together. But he was, well, they were just all so different. And then, of course, Delaney, the middle one, he was just a regular, Andy Hardy, I guess you call him. He went into all the sports. He was a football player, and he could have gotten a football scholarship. After he got into college, he didn't. I don't know, lost interest in football. He went into wrestling and high school and tennis. He was one of the first, I think, to start the tennis teams out here. You know, Ed Porter was enthusiastic about that, and really got a bunch together. And Delaney and Warren Wilson and
Was Gable here, or was this after World War? This was after World War II.
Let's see, wait a minute. Oh, yes, because they were
Yeah,
little bitty
yeah,
kids then.
uh-huh.
Oh, yes, this was in the 50s. Yeah, 50, 7, 58, 59. Yes, they had their first, as a school sport, it was the first year. He was on the team the first year. And incidentally, Johnny started the first year of golf, too. When they first started having golf, he was on the first golf team. So they were just beginning to branch out from the usual basketball, football, volleyball, and getting into some other sports. Ben Delaney was a leader, too. He was an all-around. He was, everything was good to his he's the only one that got caught up in the Vietnam War. He was in the Marines in Vietnam for 15 months. Probably turned out hair white because he was in the field. But he came back without a scratch, physically or psychologically.
Wonderful.
And he went out just joined the Marines. He was going to be drafted anyway, and he said, well, I'd rather be in the Marines. And during the year, in the course of the field work, he got up to sergeant. So that's the sergeant. So he did pretty well. But,
So when were you married? When did you and John? In 1930.
June 11th.
And John died a year ago.
Next month, 5th of January.
5th of January.
77.
77.
We were married 40 and a half years.
A few years ago, 1958, I believe, John received a silver cup from the National Trust
Oh, yes. I'll talk to you
Historic
later.
Preservation.
Yes. For his work in restoring the area of history.
Do you recall how long he was president of the Mark Twain Museum on board?
It was 31 years.
31 years. 31 years. What things did John do? See, that was the period we was on.
Yeah.
So we're unfamiliar with what happened in that period of time. In the area down in the Mark Twain home area, were there any other things that he was interested in, buildings that he had an interest in
Well,
during
of
that
course,
time?
the city required. See, my mother gave the house of Pulaski to the city, and then of course he was instrumental in restoring that. And I'll tell you, Charlie Walker was wonderful. He worked with him, and of course John really wasn't professional in restoration, but he wanted it authentic, and so Charlie Walker worked with him on all of that. And they scoured the countrysides, they went into all kinds of places, bars and everything else, finding things. People are so generous, and they have old things, and they think they will be valuable or useful. But they don't go back far enough. You see, they may go back to the 70s or the 60s. But that home was in the 40s, 1840. And so Charlie Walker could tell the periods and know what was too late for the home, or what,
Where's Charlie Walker?
His father had his father had a drugstore over on the south side.
Well, I
South
remember
Main Street,
walking.
yeah. But he had a very good, he built up a very good reputation. He would call to Chicago and Philadelphia for appraisals. I mean, he really had great knowledge. So he was he helped John an awful lot. And you see, when John started to get interested down there was the Becky Thatcher home just sitting there. And going to waste. Mrs. Hamlin and Miss Hayes, the two sisters-in-laws, were running to the sort of a boarding house. They had a few rooms there. Now, before that, it was a different category. Every once in a while, they would get upset by some man who hadn't been here for a long time, you know, coming back to Hannibal and remembering, you know, and banging on the door at 4
Old
o'clock in the
times,
morning,
eh?
you know.
I haven't heard that.
Well, they had marvelous sense of humor, so they really got a kick out of things like that. But at first I think at first he leased the house, and they still lived upstairs. And he started this bookshop in one side of the house. And then it took on so, you know, that he realized that he was going to need the whole house. And they worked for him. These two old ladies, they were lovely, these little ladies. And then he, you know, he realized he was going to need more room and more room, so that then he bought it. I can't remember what year that was. But, and then they took John was responsible, but they moved out. Of course, he needed the whole house then. And, his dream was to have a very nice atmosphere, sort of, well, like a library. He had a couch and an open desk chair, and it was a bookshop, with an open fireplace, and people were to come in and browse, you know, and that was his idea. Well, the chair went and the couch went, and he just needed the room. It just got too big, got beyond him. all the comforts and all the atmosphere had, well, most of it had to leave. So it just became a real good thing. Well, the field was wide open. Even in Hannibal, there was no real bookstore. I mean, Off-Road had a bookshop, but it was mostly a bookshop. They might have had 2 shelves of books. You know, there were not 5 books, but mostly textbooks and research and stuff like that. There's no real bookshop in that. And, you know, you go to any place, and besides the Palmyra, we'll have 6 bookshops, you know, but not here. So, anyway, there was quite a feel for it. And then, everything just sort of built up. One thing led to another. The postcard business, there was no postcards after about 1912. You know, funny little cards of Hannibal. In the 50s, he started using our kids for models and doing his own photography. And in connection with the Dexter Press, he made all these lovely postcards that we have now, and that became quite a business too. And that was certainly a wide open field. I don't know why anyone hadn't thought of that field before. But I think you have to be on the scene. There's an awful lot of Hannibals never even been down on Hill Street, so you know they didn't start before. But as far as the buildings were concerned, well, of course they moved that law office from the where was it, on South Bird?
Yeah, down in between.
It was on an alley
100 blocks.
Yes, well, the picture, what was that?
I believe.
My memory.
Well, it was a movie company.
Movie company that was making the picture of Tom Sawyer. Well, anyway, they bought the thing and gave it to the city. Well, it was so far removed and in such a bad section that they decided to move it up to the where it is now, the present section. Of course, he was instrumental in that. Rebuilt it exactly the way it was. Oh, somewhere I've got pictures of all this. I've got pictures of all these in various stages of the building and redoing it and everything. But the whole time was very out. But then the House of Pilasters was restored, and Walker was very instrumental in getting that. And then John got the idea of using mannequins to, you know, to liven up these museum rooms. And so he, I don't know, that took a long time, and they had these guys going into the costumes and stuff and what he wanted. And these positions, especially in the law office where the fellow was lying on the couch and, you know, well, it was fine that night. And I woke up, saw the fellow on the floor. Those magazines. And then John got the idea, somewhere along the line, I think it was of fixing up the upstairs of the bookshop of the house he owned. Of course, such as after home, he only had two different homes. That's one city. And like having Becky and Paula and fixed up that as just a little museum of his own, little Charlie. And Charlie helped him on that.
Is that house still privately owned?
Oh, yes.
Do the Antons own that house?
No, it's fine.
It's yours. I see.
It will be when the estate settled. It's in the estate now. But that was John. That was every bit of that was his baby. I hardly went down there. I mean, I didn't want to interfere in any way. That was all his.
Is the Pilaster house owned by the city?
Yes.
And the law office?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And they were all
didn't know
given
that.
to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By
Okay.
your father and grandfather.
No, my mother. With my mother, the house of Pilaster. They were all gone then. My father died in 1940. My grandfather died in 36.
I wondered about that. Your father died 16 after
3 years. 3 years.
his
3 years and 3 months. And he had a heart attack at 55, and you know, that's pretty young. Of course, if you're looking at it from the other end at that time, it was a shock, because he was 85. He lived 30 years longer than my father. But they were both heart attacks, and they both went very suddenly.
Estelle, one thing that we found was that you were in a production in 1918, April the 12th, Tom Thumb Wedding.
I don't remember that.
Do you recall it at all?
No, I remember the kids. I think, now let's see, I think Dorothy Renman Weaver was bride. And I think Joe Bound, Dr. Bound's son, was the Dr. Seymour, was the groom, and I think, but I'm not sure, I think I was the bridesmaid. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Oh, really? Well, I don't even know any, my mother may have. You see, she's got tons of junk in her attic that I've never gotten into, so she may have all that stuff, but that's a little before I started collecting her clippings.
We took a lot of notes on those phone drives. We had enough notes on those.
Oh, yes. Well, now that's where you would find, these things. Yeah, that was pretty early. I was sort of stage struck, you know. I was in a lot of the high school productions of things, the class plays and things like that. And then I was in an American Legion deal, you know, when they used to give a musical every year down at the old Orpheum. So I was on the stage there once in a musical. And that was long before I was married.
Estelle, the last visit of Mark Twain was substantially before you were born, but do you recall anything your parents ever talking about
I don't
Mark
think
Twain?
they ever met him. He was here just that one evening, you know, and went up to the Cruikshank Mansion. That was 1902, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, and I'm pretty sure that my grandfather never met him.
Well, now, I believe that it was your grandfather, could have been your father, that went to a reception dinner the night at Clayton's, one of the nights that he was here in 1902. There was quite an article about it.
Well, that
But,
would have been my grandfather if he was there, because, see, my father was, in 1902. He was only, he'd only been 18 years old. I doubt if they would have had kids
there, you know.
No, it was kind of smoker.
Uh-huh.
They used to write
It
about
probably
it.
was, if it was anybody, it was my grandfather, but I just assumed that he had never met him, because but I
Well,
don't know.
Well, it listed those who were in attendance.
Well, and he would
And
have
I
been my
think,
grandfather.
I think
Now,
he
did
was,
you find that in the Robards scrapbook?
yes.
It was never in the pages, but the Robards
Well, that's probably why I
scrapbooks
never knew about
are
it, I
down
guess.
at the Historical Society, and this party was written up in the diary.
Oh,
Robards.
well, it may have. Or it may have been, you sure it was Mayhem, it wasn't Delaney. No, because
No, it was
Delaney
Mayhem.
died
Uh-huh.
in 95, that's right, he wouldn't have been there. No, it probably was my grandfather. I guess so.
We also found quite an article about the 1935 centennial Mark Twain celebration,
Oh, yeah.
and that let's see, Mark Twain's granddaughter was here.
Oh, yes, he was here. I was the hostess.
That's what we found.
Yeah.
Okay, do you?
And, yes, I've got a picture in here of that. Yes, she came in on the Burlington, and we went down to meet her, and then we had a big luncheon at the Mark Twain Hotel. We had the historical several, 2/3 of one film for that visit. And now let's see. There were two visits. She was here twice because the Burlington Zephyr dedication, the granddaughter was here alone. And earlier in that year, when we inaugurated the centennial, she came with her mother. But her mother was here, and see this.
Up from there, so we get it on the board.
And this is Nina. And this is Tom. And over here, this was Charles Dawes, who was vice president. And this was Kellogg, who was, the College Beach Class. And this was Mayor Dickens, St. Louis. Dickens. And now, I'm not sure. This was the Mark Twain luncheon. I think it was the last one my grandfather, what day was it? 36. Well, you see, he died, this was in November 30th, and he died December 60th.
With Mark
2 years later.
That's bigger.
Yeah,
I knew that.
yeah, and that's for Shoemaker from the Strike. Then Peter Cassidy was our husband. That was his last, and then he, of course, he was on the board of trustees at the university. I made a picture I took of the daughter. Did you see the one, well, I was telling you about it down at the home, where she was paying tax on the back fence? Now, here's where she was here, the daughter, Nina. Now, this is Walter Russell. This is the sculptor. This is the, and here I am. I didn't see me.
In the background.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Morris Anderson.
And an early Tom and Becky.
Yeah, now they were just for the occasion. They were not
So
the same deal that they do now. See, they had Pop and Tom and Becky for the centennial. But that was before they started the annual collection. And yeah, and you know she was 85 then.
What?
Really? She had her hair dyed. Let's see, because I have a thing here. Where it says she was 85.
When she died, we were living there near where she was. And I put out a Santa Ana.
Oh, in California. Yeah.
And
Well, now wait a minute. Maybe she wasn't 85 at that time.
But maybe 90-something when she died.
Yes,
She was quite old. I just saw that this morning. I'm thinking now that was my baby. She said it, and I throw it away. Finally, I decided I'd give it to Ruth Anton.
Oh, yes.
Because it was a local story.
But I don't think I have too many things. Really, if I'd had an earlier book, and I do have somewhere, but I can't find it. Of course, this is the Historical Society. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's the picture. I took it. And they put it in the paper.
Oh,
yes.
Petting the cat.
No, if I saw that, I do
Well, it was just
remember
a
it.
private picture.
I
and they just
suppose that I
printed
saw it
for one.
because it was in the 35 paper.
yeah.
But,
now this is Clara Clements that you're Bill with.
That's the daughter, the only surviving daughter. And, of course, now look at the difference in the backyard. There was this high wooden fence and a shed here.
Oh, that's at the home,
This
isn't
is
it?
the
Mark
backyard of
home.
the home.
And she's
You
petting a
would
cat
never
up on the
recognize
fence.
it from the way
Yeah.
it is now.
before the garden and before the beautification.
Before everything.
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah.
I know it was one of the people are coming from all over the world.
Yes, at that time, they had a, what they call a house of ill fame right next door, where the garden is now. And we had to buy that and tear it down and make the garden. So it was part of town. But, yeah, now this is all my grandfather's, you've probably seen all of these, you see. This was
Yeah.
just the,
I copied one of his talks.
You have that headline.
yeah, you probably have all that. Well, you see, now his scrapbooks, he had piles of them, and my mother had them. She kept the office for quite a while down on over the bank there. Then when she gave it up, she brought all the books home, and they're probably up in her attic somewhere. I haven't even had time to get my own attic. I don't know if I'll ever get hers or not. So I really, just as I say, I just don't have much on hand.
Tell us a little bit about your mother. What was her maiden name?
Well, she was Reverend Marshall's daughter, Reverend Levi Marshall. He had the First Christian Church here in the at the turn of the century, and he was born in Akron, Ohio. Then they went to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then they came here. She was 2 years old. And her mother was an Eastern family from New Jersey. Her father, her grandfather, was an architect. He built churches all over the world, and I guess that's where all the artistic ability comes from the family, because he was quite an artist as well as a draftsman, and he was a church architect, and he experimented with air conditioning way back in the 1800s. Yeah, George W. Springer. K-R-A-M-E-I. And he lived to be 92. In fact, my son was born when he died. He was his only great grandson.
The Delaney building at the First Christian Church there.
Well, now that the Delaney building is from the other Delaney. That's from Will and Edith Schofield Delaney, and Will Delaney, and Vivian Delaney. You see, their father was, their mother was my grandmother's first cousin. So they were cousins of my father. There were 2 of them, and my father was an only child. So then they eventually moved to St. Louis, which just left our branch here.
Well, that had no connection then between the minister. That was,
No. No, except that, of course, they were
within
all
the
very
family.
influential in the church,
Yeah.
and of course they were very close friends with the minister, and they always stayed over for Sunday dinner with his little daughter. See, my grandmother died when my mother was only 15, so she was, women in the congregation instead of self-eternal voters, and my grandmother knew him, especially so. But, of course, my father just thought she was a little title on it. That's how I was younger at that time. That's a lot of difference in ages.
Yeah.
But when he graduated from McGill University and went to Harvard Law School, he was just going to Rutgers. And so my grandmother said, now you've got to be nice to little Sarah Marshall. Because I'm going to speak daughter, and she's going, oh, she doesn't know anybody, and you be nice to her. Of course, you know, they're right there by Boston. Both Wellesley and Harvard were so close. And I'm not sure he relished that, but that's really how they knew each other there, but that's really how they got together. So she became quite a pedicure.
Yeah.
And so the romance really started out there. And then they were married in 1911. And a year after they got graduated.
She was quite musical. She had this theremin at
Yeah, the theremin. It was
theremin.
Theremin. It was named for Professor Theremin, a Russian. He invented it. And it really was, we invented it to detect metal, people who were going into prison, for instance. It would pick up anything that got close to it and detect, like they have radar, X-rays now, in those days they didn't. And it would just go off like a siren. Then he found out that you could control these sounds that were being made in the ether waves. And so he started using it as a musical instrument. And it's a very eerie thing, because you play it entirely in the air, you don't touch anything. You just have to know, you have to have an ear. And she had a perfect ear. So she could play it. And I heard him give a recital my first year at Smith, and I was just fascinated by it. And I thought, well, my mother could play that, because I thought she could play anything. It was good. And so when Daddy said, what in the world, and I'm going to get some mother for Christmas, I said, the perfect thing. Well, you don't just go down to your corner music store and buy a theremin, you know. So he had a long search through the Aeolian Company in St. Louis. They located one in Detroit. Man who had bought it and just couldn't control it, couldn't do anything with it, and he was willing to unload it. So it was second hand.
What's the word that in St. Louis?
Aeolian.
E-O-L-I-A.
AEO, I think. And it's, of course, they had the contacts, they knew where to look. But so he did get it for us. And there was no way, nobody could teach her how, because nobody knew anything about it. So she just experimented with it, and she would play records to give an orchestration to the background, because it's like a violin or a cello, you know, it needs a little help in the background. And she just went, oh.
That was a marvelous thing.
I can remember that the only instruments that didn't resemble a pipe that resembled a violin.
Yes.
It was just violin.
Mm-hmm. And in the deeper notes, it can sound like a cello. But it's an eerie thing. And, you know, there were only, I think there were only 14 in the world. There were 9 in the United States. I don't know how many are left now. Very few. But one of Helen Hayes' productions in New York, I think that was used as background music, as music. And this man lived in Connecticut, and he went into New York every night just to play this for that production. So her mother was in New York at one time. She went to see him. She was getting recorded from it. And with everything, it was the other way around. You know, because he was very proficient in it, and he was more of a musician, less of a, what's this been played by here.
Do you still, is it still in the family?
No, it's not there anymore. I doubt if it takes a lot to tune it. And it will go out of well, it's not exactly tuning, but you have to, for instance, you might set it up like she used to do for a concert, and she got a range fairly well, like she gets little tree or whatever it was she wanted to build from. maybe 12 inches from the rod, which is what you gauge from. Well, by the time the room filled up, and maybe several hundred people got in there with their body heat, the temperature went up, and the thing went clear off, and I was going to draw it back sort of, so she had to readjust it all over again, bring it up close to the rod. Very, very sensitive and very unusual.
Yes, indeed. Well, it takes quite a person to be able to play an instrument.
Well,
like
it
that
just
with
takes complete ear.
Yeah.
It's just like if she sits down to a piano and she can play anything somebody whistles. She doesn't have to worry about, well, is it B or C? It's actually music. You can just mow to the note.
When I'm talking with Mr. Seibel from the American Book, he told me that Helen Grace and your mother were the only two people who grew up in church.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I know Mother had service church. I didn't know that Helen Grace, but she was quite a musician. But it's unusual, even in good musicians.
Very
A
unusual.
complete gift.
Yeah.
You just
Sure.
walk with it. You have it or you don't.
Your father, Delaney Mahan, we found a notation that he had the first Packard car in Hannibal.
Now, I don't know. Some people might dispute that because the Fire Fantasies had a Packard car. And the Myers, what was his name? Anyway, he had a Packard car. My mother was going with both Daddy and Mr. Myers. They both had Packard cars.
Oh, choice.
Nothing but the best. But, yes, it was one of the first, anyway.
Uh-huh.
And he drove it out to school. He drove it to Boston and had it carried it out there in Austria. And that's what he would drive back and forth to Wellesley in.
Well, this notation was in November of 1915, so that was an early car. We read someplace, or
I think it was a 1909 car.
well, we read someplace about. I thought it was one of the Delaney's that drove a car from up near Minnesota, up north to St. Louis, coming through Hannibal, and frightened a horse out here at Oakwood.
That could be.
But did any of the,
that?
well, it would have been long in that period of time. But did some of the Delaneys or the Mahans live up there at
Oh, yes, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
Yes, Delaney, yes, one of the Delaneys had that lumber company in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. You see, they were all in lumber. That's what really started them
That
out.
was in 1904. They were on the way to the fair.
That could have
They
been.
drove from there
Yes.
to the World's Fair, St. Louis
Well, that would have been an early car.
in 1904.
Many cars.
Well, now that would have been before this car. But now that Delaney, what was his name? He was another George Delaney. He was a cousin of, a first cousin of Mary Schofield, Edith Schofield Delaney and Will Delaney and Vivian, those three. Then they had, across Center Street, that the old apartment house now is an old Delaney house.
Porch on the house.
Yes, that's right. Well, that was a George
That was
Delaney
George
house.
Delaney.
And he was first cousin to these other Delaneys. And his, now wait a minute. It was his brother, I believe, that was in Wisconsin. His children, he had two children, George Jr. and Clifton Delaney. Clifton went to Dallas and married Lingo down there, Mac Lingo. And their children are still in Dallas. But the name is gone. There is a Delaney Lingo, and that's all, the first name. And then the daughter married a Shulkoff down there, very prominent in Dallas. And now it's the Shulkoff that the ones that we know that go to Minnesota in summer, things like we go in the summer, and that's our only contact with them. But now the one you're talking about in Wisconsin is the one who married Dan Price's aunt.
Oh.
Which is, Aunt Mame. We called her Aunt Mame. She married Delaney. And he died first, and then she left all that Delaney money to the Overstreet. And Mrs. Overstreet was her niece. And that's how Francis and the Overstreet got here on Harrison Hill. And Emily, Overstreet.
Jimmy.
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 You know, that hard name
Yeah,
to remember, Jimmy. Jim Overstreet and Emily, you see, were the son and daughter of the elder Mrs. Overstreet, who was the niece of Aunt Mame Delaney. So all of that money went to that side, and that's why they are well fixed out. And then, but that was way off. Cousins.
Yeah. Was your father an attorney?
Yeah. My grandfather and my father and my brother.
Where did your father go to school?
Harvard Law.
At Harvard.
Well, now he
And
graduated.
now that's where he met your mother there.
Well, he didn't meet her there because
But,
he
yeah,
knew
he
her
knew her
here.
before, but that's where they...
She grew up knowing him, but that's where the romance began. And well, he had graduated from Missouri University first, and then went to Harvard Law. Because the main thing, if you're going into profession, you know, in Missouri, my grandfather thought you should know the people in Missouri, you know, and then he wanted law. So he went to university, and then he went to Harvard Law. Now, my grandfather was a lawyer, too, and he's the one I was telling you about. They went to Washington University before it was Washington and Lee in Virginia. It was called Washington University then because that was the first year that, the second year, that Lee was president there after the Civil War. You know, they gave him that position as president of Washington University.
You told us that his graduation certificate was signed by Lee?
Yeah, I don't know where that is, but
Uh-huh.
Lee was the president at that time. Now, he has a picture autographed by Lee of Lee at some university. And that's here somewhere. But then he came back and read law here in Harrison's Law, Judge Harrison's Law Office, that's right. And he read law there. Of course, in those days, you see, that was way back in the late 1870s, I guess. And there were specialized law schools at that time. And you usually just read law like an apprentice would learn anything from someone already established. And then, of course, my brother did the same thing as my father. He went to Missouri University and then went to Harvard Law. But he never practiced here. He passed the bar exams in Missouri, but he never practiced here. He went right to New York. So he lived up here and worked in Missouri. Now he's in New York, and he's been in New York for 4 years. Daniel Delaney. So they were all three attorneys.
Your grandmother, Mrs. George A. Mahan, her name was Ida?
Ida Mary Delaney.
Ida Mary Delaney.
That's where I get Ida Stell, and my sister gets Mary Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
Estelle is my mother's middle name, and Marshall was her last name. So we were married to the two
name for the
grandmother.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Your grandmother gave the home over here.
Yes, she and my grandfather together.
Well, now, I don't recall the exact details. We have it someplace, but they gave it, but in honor of someone, another
well,
relative.
Well, I tell you, there was I'm very hazy on that, and I was on the board there too, but it's been so long ago. They were in conjunction with somebody else. They built the building, and I think the Pettibones furnished it or something. I mean, there was the other donor in there, so I was the Pettibones, I believe. Now, whether they built it in honor of her mother, Miss Delaney, I don't know.
But one of the Delaney, they gave it in memory.
Well, then it was her mother, because her mother died in 1911, right after my mother and father got married. But she wasn't their wedding, she was here. And, you know, of course I told you, I think I told you this, the wives of Dan Delaney, you know, my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather, had 4 wives. And he lived out in Paris. Well, his first 3 wives all died in childbirth. This was the bugaboo of the middle 1800s. And they were very young. And he has a gravestone out there with 3 arches, 1 stone, the wives of Dan Delaney. Underneath. And then each plaque on each arch, which is the 3 parts of the 1 stone, the names of each one. No, it's over in Paris, Missouri. Yes, it's still there, and somebody wrote that up once as an oddity of the Midwest, because they'd never seen a gravestone like that. And then he has the names of each wife, her birth date, her marriage date, and her death date, which is unusual. Yes, because now one girl was only married to 9 months. She died in 9 months. One was married 18 months, and I think one was, I don't think any of them was 2 years. One was 20 months. And I think, you know, he did that just to show how terrible it could be in that time.
How sad it was for him.
Oh, I don't know how he survived. You know, so many things happened though in the last century. They were tough people, and both of them were survivors. And you see, my great-grandmother had survived 3 marriages. He survived 3 wives, and she survived 2 husbands. He was her 3rd husband. She was his 4th wife. They were the tough ones. They were the survivors. And but she said she'd be darned if she was going to be under that darn stone with the wives of Dan Delaney. So they moved. So she came to Hannibal, and she has her own stone, and he's right beside her.
Is that not all of it?
Yeah, that's up there, the Delaney stone with the angel pointing up, you know.
Oh,
with
yeah.
the, quite a high, big angel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Delaneys around there. But they are by themselves there.
You were on the home board, you said.
No, that was before my time. My grandmother knew. I have a picture of my grandmother having tea with her. But I know where that is either. But no, I never did. She was alive, but she wasn't up there when I was on board.
When I was a Boy Scout, we went up there from 1925, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. We go up and have a party for the children. And I'm not certain, but I think I can remember her.
Well, I bet you can, because she was there. Oh, yes, she was there. See, I didn't go on the board until I was out of college. I guess it was 35 or 36, somewhere along there. But, maybe it was later. No, I was only...
What?
I was only on about 10 years.
What?
Oh, yes, it is.
But you were on the board when it dissolved, were you?
Yes.
It was strange how the need for
Well, you see,
orphanages
when all this
came.
age to dependent children came in, you see, suddenly people wanted their children to get that money. And there weren't any true orphans over there. When the last year when I was on the board, there was no true orphan. There was some divorced and broken homes. And so they just taking them out. Then they could get this aid to dependent children, this money. And they did it for that. The kids are still living on private pay. It's never no great money there. But that's what the state was doing with its, help. A lot of people needed the help. A lot of people just put their kids out together, And I think we got down to C. And they had an uncle who was over in Jester in the legislature. I didn't know his family. Not family. Well, again, that's my memory. But they could easily find a place for those three, and we couldn't keep the place open for 2 children. So they were placed with their family, or uncle or somebody. And the thing just dissolved. Well, there was something in the deed, I think, that if the time ever came, when it couldn't be used, that it would revert to the family.
That happens when it was all children and care.
There has to be some disposition for it. And then, of course, what could we do? We just sold it, and then the Catholic school wanted it. Luckily, because there's not too much market for a thing like that. And they've done a very, very nice job with it. I think so too.
Your grandmother also left this money for the Mahan Awards in the public school, which has been a very interesting and good thing for the community.
Well, and then we had to add to that. My mother and my brother and sister-in-law, when things, what would they place the amount she left is about 15 years ago, in order to keep up the same amount to get from the capital, so we don't bring the capital immediately. He said, now, you could be president of this country when you grow up. You just don't have to be kids like that. And so he and my father really set this up in my grandmother's name. It wasn't so much that she left the money.
I see.
As a matter of fact, she died in Texas. She had no will, but they knew what she liked, what she would like done, and so they did it. And so they arranged the whole thing and set it up, and I'll say my grandfather was there for the rural schools and in education in general.
And it's very unusual type of award.
Yes. Literary and oral.
I've never heard of a camp or grade school and high school.
Yes.
Recognition.
Yes. Starts them out early. Starts them out early, and that's
you'd be interested. We found in the 1850 census that there was a George A. Mahan, age 28, in Palmyra.
Yeah, that's where he's from. He had a farm after.
And he was born in Kentucky, and his wife was Hannah Jenny Griffith.
Jenny Griffith, that was his mother.
And George A. Mahan, 1 month old.
Now,
In the
he was born in 1852.
Well, this
He
was...
was in 1856, 1 month old.
Yeah, I'll be darned. He's older than he thought he was. He was putting one over on us.
Well, we found that in the census.
So now that's amazing, because I didn't realize that. He was the oldest son, and his mother had 10 children, and his father died, and I never could figure that out. She had 10 children, and he died. You think she would be the one to give up So his father died so young that he never really remembered him too well. His mother remarried a man named Barger, and that was the one that the family remembers. It was really the stepfather, Mr. Barger. I'll say his first name. But I never knew much about the Mahan family, except that they had this farm out there, and I have seen the farm. I've never been in it. And I do know that he had 5 little brothers. I think this was when he was at school out east. Because he went right very early. I think he was 65, 66. He was either 16 or 17 when he went out there. And these little brothers were all under the age of 10, and they all died in one summer. Either diphtheria or no, what's that other thing? Typhoid fever. I thought it might have been typhoid. See, they were on the farm and maybe something with the water or something. But how does a woman survive the death of 5 little boys in one summer? And you know they were tough people.
They sure were. They had to be to survive.
They just had to be. So you see, there were only 5 of them that survived, and then Joe, who was sort of the youngest to survive, and a good-looking young fellow, died at 21 of consumption. So only 4 of them, really, 2 sisters and 2 brothers, came to adults to maturity. And the 2 sisters married and lived in Monroe City, and I never knew he had a brother until the brother came here to die. He was old Sam Mahan, never married, and he kept following the gold diggings out, ended up, I think, in Alaska, in the Yukon somewhere. Never did make any money. The minute somebody got within 5 miles of him, he moved on. You know, he didn't want anybody around him. He was one of those lone hermits. Well, finally, I guess he got pretty old and didn't have any money, so he wired to my grandfather to send him some money. He was going to come home and die. Well, he came home in 1929, I guess it was, and my grandmother died in 30, and the first time I ever knew there was a family, and he came to her funeral.
Well,
He didn't live with my grandfather. He came home to one of his sisters, Mrs. Dimmitt, Mag Dimmitt, out in, well, it was Levy. She married twice. She married Dimmitt, and she married Levy. Mrs. Levy and Mrs. Babcock, so Sam, I only saw him once, and I didn't really see him. And then, not many months later, he died. He met it when he was coming home to die. But it was an odd family, and you say George Mahan, George A. Mahan. Now the A was for Addison.
that was
He
the
was
name.
senior, I guess.
And he was 20
20 in 1950.
in 1850.
I mean 1850.
He was 28.
28. Yeah. Well, I think the mother must have been around 16. She was very young.
Wife was Hannah Jenny Griffith.
That's right. That was the mother. And she was much younger than he was, but she was probably just a 16-year-old. She did my father, or my grandfather.
Well, it's amazing some of the families that we find in those old census.
You know, that
tracts,
must be fascinating. I've never really, never had the time really
Well,
to dig into things.
Unless you had a reason for doing it, you know, you'd never do it.
Well, I'm
Some-
just interested. I'm
we-
interested, but I don't get. I just
we found that so many things that your grandfather did. We found he was on the library board in 1881 in Hannibal.
Yeah. Well, I knew he wasn't some time, but I didn't know just when.
Now that was really about the time that the library, it wouldn't have been in the present location.
No, because didn't the Garth build that?
Yes.
Yes.
It could have been over in the Park Theater, Roberta. I've forgotten it.
Upstairs there's
I-
different places.
And then he was very active in the Retail Merchants Association, the forerunner of the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, yes, I think he was. You know, he was interested in politics when he was young. You know, a young attorney, first they have to be city attorney, and then they have to be, a prosecuting attorney. And in order to do that, you have to be known, you have to get into everything. And he was in everything.
Everybody was so talented.
he was a good speaker. They made a.
I mean, it wasn't just for politics.
We read
He was interested.
that talk that he made,
In 1905.
the full text of it is down here for your
Oh,
education.
he made some darn good talk. He was talented that way. He was sort of like an orator,
He
you know.
was eloquent.
Yes, he was.
And then in,
I thought it was pretty good. They sort of had a good.
well, there was a time when that was very essential, and people
Well, they
strove
didn't
to
have
do
TV,
that.
they didn't
Yeah.
have radio, and they would go to lectures. People talking was, a lecture was
Oh, we were
a
thrilled to talk about
entertainer,
it.
You remember Morris Anderson?
Morris Anderson.
Oh, good man. I can still remember some of his
Oh,
talk.
was he good? Oh, he was a showman.
He sure was. He sure was. But we noticed that in 1912 that he was named by the University Missourian as a maker of Missouri. He was given
Oh,
that
really?
title. May 1912.
I know, I have several volumes of prominent Missourians that various people have written, you know, in a lot of the lives.
And during World War I, he was on this Council of Defense, the County Council of Defense, and this was for this was a kind of an overseeing group that had charge of everything related to the war effort in that particular county.
Oh,
As far as civilians were concerned.
Yeah.
And
Well, that
civilians
must
did
have
about as much as soldiers in World War
oh,
One.
that's true. They worked. I remember my
I remember
grandmother
that.
was in the Red Cross deal, and boy, she was down there all the time. And, well, that was something like in World War II, probably, where they organized civil defense thing, because I just didn't realize that they did that.
Scott Meyer
World War
was
I.
quite a bit about
Yes.
things from World War One. Everybody was in on it, I remember. I can remember that.
But that was-
See, I was born in 1960. I can remember a lot of that.
Well, I can remember a little bit, but I was 1912, and I was just enough back of you, I guess, that
You were a little girl and I was.
I can remember the Armistice Day. Oh,
The only thing I
biggest
can
thing,
remember
that
one
big
other thing.
parade coming up and all that. Oh, going down.
I remember that.
I remember that, and I remember dressing up in my mother's Red Cross. Oh, I just thought it was marvelous. You know, the little kids like to dress up in her, they wear those headdresses, you know, with the veils
They
hanging
made
down
them for
the Red
children
Cross.
because I just tasted a picture of my sister.
Oh?
With her Red Cross wheel
Uh-huh.
that was given to her for making things for building babies.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, of course, I wasn't contributing. I was just dressing up. Yeah, well, she could do that. Yeah, she was able to contribute.
Do you remember anything else about World War I?
Oh,
So-
heavens. Well, I do remember they're packing up, I think this might have been after the war, though. You know, there were so many refugees, and the Armenians were in such a bad state, and I don't know what all. And our church sent an awful lot of things overseas. And I remember they were packing, some women were packing great big cartons of things at our house down on Center Street there. And I had gotten a little beaded bag for birthday, I guess, or something. You know how they these little reticule type things. And while nobody was looking, I put it in one of the boxes, you know. That was my...
You wanted to do
I
Your
wanted to do
contribution.
something.
Uh,
Well, it was just a miracle to me how that thing came back. Because that night, my mother said, "Is this your bag?" And of course, they'd evidently rechecked everything and found the bag. You know. I was so put out. I said, I wanted that to go. I was just what we were going to do a thing like that over there. They don't need party things.
You really tried.
But I thought that was very valuable to me, and I thought it would be to them.
Sure.
But I got it back. A wasted effort.
Through the eyes of a child. That was pretty important.
Yeah,
That was pretty
that
important.
stands out. But I don't remember at what stage whether it was still during the war or like they.
It could
We were
have
just sending so many things over.
been. They were building things to help us, at least.
Yes.
Some of the overrun countries.
And I remember Mother knitting stones. Oh, man. I can remember seeing her knitting. I was too young to knit too. I was too young to be in use at all.
Ida Stell, in 1925, your grandfather was elected president of the State Historical Society in Missouri. And now he was president.
When he died.
Wasn't he the first president?
No. Now wait a minute, I've got the presidency. No, it had been
It had been operating.
for, no, I think their dates are in here too. This is the most, here they are, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I'll read it like
Well, let's see, 1903, that's it.
Now, 1898, he was
Is that-
president. It started in 1898.
Oh, yeah, 1898, yeah.
I guess that, and then it comes on up to,
Yeah.
and you see, he was
Yeah.
president when he died.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize the State Historical Society was that old.
Well, I tell you, he gave it quite an impetus when, during, he
I
was
know he
president
did.
for quite a few years, and he did a lot of things to sort of put him on the map. You know, I mean, he spent a lot of time.
Mhm.
And
Well, he
interest.
cared too.
That's what I mean.
Not only about Hannibal, but about
Yeah.
the state.
Oh,
As you
state,
read about
yeah.
him, he cared about the state.
Oh, yeah. Yes, this was home.
Yeah. Well, he was re-elected for the third term, as I have. He died in 1936,
36. He was
and this was
30.
1932 that he was re-elected for the third term. I don't know how long those
Well,
terms
let's see.
were.
Well, he started at 25. 29, 32, 33, 33, with, I guess, a 4-year term.
4-year term. Then one of the things that he did that everyone was very keenly interested in was the providing of these signs, metal signs,
Yes.
historical
Yeah,
signs.
that all happened under his leadership. Yes.
Well, now, he
That's quite
personally
a
did that,
thing.
didn't he, Ida
Yes,
Stell?
he contributed those.
Yes.
Because they didn't have the money.
These were the historical signs that indicated things of importance, historical.
Where this took that place and that took place. And
4 of them here at Hannibal,
there,
in near
one
Hannibal.
down at the Mount Plain Road, and then out on the highway. Now, some of those have disappeared, but he had them marked. I know up at Palmyra, there's one Peg-Leg Cannon, you know, I'm sure
Yes,
about him. And then out here on 36, some old 36 it was at that time. And I think that sign disappeared 2 or 3 times. And they had to replace it. I think they finally gave up on that. I'm not sure it's still there. But all through the state, you could
Well, I recall those things, seeing them, you know, back in the 30s, seeing those things throughout the
Yes.
state. In
Yeah, because
different places.
otherwise, you know, you just go right by someplace, you never know. He thought, well, it was interesting to know what happened here, you know. And other states were doing it at that time, too, some of them. Just marking their places of interest, and well, what should we?
Do you remember the sculptor Frederick Hibbert?
I don't remember him too well, no. I met him once. So that was way, that was 1920, when was that? 26, 25, 26. Yeah. He was here for the dedication class. And I did meet him, but I didn't know him.
Roberta, that about covers the things I had on this, we had on this list. Are there any other things that you would
Well,
like?
as long as we're talking about sculptors, do you remember Walter Russell?
Oh, yes, I do.
What did you,
He did a portrait of me. This is, you know, he seemed like such an elderly person, but he really wasn't so darn elderly. It turned out right after he was here, he divorced his wife of about 45 years and married some young girl that came over from England and took him away from her. I didn't realize he was that kind of But he went back to, he was here with Jesse Lasky, the movie people, when they were here. And this is sort of silly, but I have the straightest hair in the world. You know, I have an awful time just even getting it to bend. And at that time, I was just wearing it straight, you know, simplest way. And they were shooting, or going to do Joan of Arc or something like that. And he said to Lasky, there's your Joan of Arc right there, you know. I think it was just the way I was doing my hair. Well, anyway, he went to New York. And then he said he sat up all night painting his portraits from memory. Well, this part is okay. I mean, you know, but his memory was very poor. You know, it doesn't really look too much like me, which is a good thing. But, about 10 years after that, my mother was in New York and came across him again. And he said, I want to show you this portrait. You never did see it. And she liked it, and she bought it from him. Sort of a token thing, and so she has it up in her house. But that was just sort of a
So the model that he has at the museum attracts a lot of interest.
well, he was more of a sculptor. He was really a sculptor. I would say his painting was not. But his sculpting, now, you know, when he married this younger girl, she really put a lot of life into it. They bought this mountain in Virginia. So have you been out there?
No.
Swananoa? And she had some religious idea. She thought that he had discovered the secrets of the universe. And together they put out a book on this religious idea they had. And they ran a school. He did have his sculpture there, and he did his sculpting classes, but it was really a religious cult. And I guess it was quite interesting for him in his old age, because he was quite elderly when he died. And quite interesting right up to the end, I guess. But it just... personally, he tickled me because he was a cute little guy, and he knew he was cute. He had a little mustache, just like a little goatee, and he'd pretend like he looked this way, and he'd look out this way at his wife, like he was being cute, he'd look at her and she'd pet him on the head, like he was a nice little cat. And, they were really something, something right out of the movies or a book, you just couldn't believe it was for real. But he was quite an eccentric and quite an individual, but he was talented. And his dream was to make the huge sculpture of this, that we had the
model.
That's what I'm trying to say. They were.
Wouldn't it have been wonderful?
And his dream was to put it on the waterfront down there, you see.
Oh, that would have been good.
Of course, we had no place for it with that harbor there. At that time, of course, the harbor wasn't there. And there was that could have been up to the Parkers, I guess, or something.
That would have been wonderful.
But it would have been simply marvelous. But it was just impossible.
And depression time.
Yes, it was bad times.
Yeah.
Well, now he was here in the 40s, I think, early 40s, and it still wasn't good. It wasn't anything you could undertake, at the time, especially kind of like this. But that was his dream.
Estelle, who are some of the people that you may have met here who came to see the Mark Twain home?
Oh, it's not. I never met too many of them. John just. Oh, I wish he had kept a book of it, because he just met people from all over the world. Of course, my mind is but Lowell Thomas, for instance, and who's the person that wrote Phil? State Fair. fellow that came from Ireland, Phil Song came through here quite early. I did meet him because we had him and his wife out to dinner, and he was writing an article on Missouri for Holiday magazine, and he was most interesting. He had written Shakespeare quite a while before that, and also he'd written several articles for Holiday magazine. He'd written the whole length of Route Number 1 from Maine clear to Key West, you know. And then he was writing this article from Missouri. He was most interesting. Oh, one person we did have was a Japanese author. Now this was quite soon after the war. Hino. You probably never heard of him, but he was quite a big writer in Japan. And I know when this was, because they were having trouble in Little Rock. You remember the civil rights deal, and all the schools were having trouble, or desegregated. And he came over on the State Department brought him over, and they sent him out with an interpreter, a Japanese American from New York, because he didn't speak English, the author didn't. And they came through here, and the State Department contacted John, and we had him up for dinner, and now that was interesting, because he kept belching, you know, at the table. We were just getting a typical American meal, you know. We figured he had no, you know, I wouldn't know anything about Japanese meal anyway, but you don't travel to eat the food you get at home, so we were getting just a regular old meat potatoes, you know, thing, and I thought, what's wrong with So finally, the interpreter said, I want to explain Mr. Hino's accent. Said in Japan, it's highly complimentary to belch at dinner, you know, to let you know that the food is rich and good, you know. And he said he's not doing this, and of course, we're just the opposite, you know, you don't go around belching at a spirit party. But we learned that too, that was a mark of complimentary. You know, he'd belch and then he'd just bow down, you know. It was so funny. But he was quite interested in this civil rights deal that we were undergoing at the time, and they were going down to Little Rock from here to see, he wanted to see it, what was going on in America and everything. But of course, being an author himself, he was most interested in Mark Twain. All over the world, you just mention Mark Twain anywhere, you know, and all of that.
Well, Norman Rockwell was never back here after he did his sketches.
You know, I don't know. Oh, gosh, I was down here. He told you so much. But, now, you know, there was quite a thing about that painting of the print. It isn't the original, you know, it's print. And John and even Laura, my daughter, when she was out living out East Coast where he was, she went up to see him a couple of times about it and corresponded with him about it, and she was going to ferret it out and find the original painting. I think she almost did. But in fact, she may know where it is if we, you know, might not let it be shown. But I don't think he was.
We read that
Don't quote me.
when he finally decided to make those exhibitions, how it was done through letters.
Yes, he wrote John. In fact,
That it was done by writing.
yes, I had the letter.
Those paintings attract so much attention.
Oh, they are marvelous. And of
when
course,
we
he
get
is
the
so...
new museum, if we
Yeah.
have a proper background for them over when they
Oh,
get the new
yeah,
building.
because they don't have the room now
No,
to really display.
They're not so
No, they're really not.
That's one of the
And,
treasures.
but, I don't know, there are just so many. They just come so often that sometimes you even forget to say somebody was by, you know. I say, when did they come? Maybe a week later. Oh, they were here last week or something, you know.
Yeah.
Just so many names.
Well, the providing and the donating of the Mark Twain home to Hannibal, really,
In 1912, I think that was.
Was really a marvelous thing. It's meant so much.
Well, it
to-
preserved the shrine for
That's right.
Hannibal. I mean, you know, there's only, the one house,
Mhm.
and if that had gone, you could say, well, this is the site, or you could put a plaque up and on the front of the butcher shop and say, this is the site where Mark Twain's home was.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like having the thing
Oh,
itself.
that's right.
You know.
And the building has been certainly well preserved since
yes.
since it was donated.
Well, of course,
It's
it
been
had to
taken-
be repaired a lot.
Sure.
But now my father did donate the sprinkler system too. He had that put in and donated it after my grandfather died. Well, afterwards, he was too scared of fire.
Well,
And
of course, a
once
fire
the
in
fire,
that thing
that's the end,
it would be
you know,
gone.
that's the end.
It's still a dreaded.
It's a dread. Those were John's nightmares.
Yeah.
He'd hear in the night, you'd hear fire, and oh my God, I hope it isn't Jesse Jackson House. Oh my God, I hope it isn't.
Yeah.
Because they are just
It
little
still
frame
has
houses,
it.
and they could just
Yeah.
go up so fast.
Still a very much.
Yes, well, the sprinkler system is there, but how good it would be, you don't know. How
Well.
effective. And of course, it would ruin everything. Yeah. Just like the Mark Twain Hotel. Wasn't that terrible?
It sure was.
Yeah, they
It
did.
sure was.
You know, water can be
Yeah.
just as damaging
Sure.
as fire.
I still, we talked about this before we started this tape.
Oh, yeah,
Don't be
I get that.
concerned about the light. We talked about this before we started this tape, but tell us a little bit about your mother now. We don't have that on this tape.
Well, you mean her,
What you're doing, helping her where she's
Oh, her
living.
illness,
Where
yes.
she's living, and
well, we keep a home for her.
that's right next door.
Yes, we keep it just the way it was.
Uh-huh.
And when she's here in the spring and the fall, that's her home.
And during the winter, where does she stay?
Well, she's with my sister in Florida.
In Florida.
And then in the summer, my sister takes her, she has a home in Minnesota, Alexandria, Minnesota. She's had that since 22, I believe 65 years. I thought she's gone up to school up every summer. And stays up there about 2 months. And my sister, of course, keeps house for her up there. So she lives the life that she was living before this happened, except for her playing golf and her social life, of course, which is impossible.
She had a stroke, and that was in what
She had
year?
a stroke in 72,
2, was it?
January 72. Be 6 years next month. And she's had trouble since then. She broke her hip 3 years ago, and she had a hard time coming back from that. And that's what makes it so hard for her to get around now. It's impossible. She's helpless. She's not paralyzed, but she's helpless. She cannot get out of a chair or get out of bed or do anything for herself. She can't stand alone. So we have to be with her every minute. And she has a sort of child's mind. I mean, she's in the present. Now, a lot of people go back.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, I took care of her up here in the house her dad was dining room. She was paralyzed for 8 months.